You are listening to the 5 Squared Podcast, the podcast where we bring you tips for your business and your life. Our goal is to leave you smarter with ideas, wisdom, tools, and entertained. The 5 Squared Podcast is produced weekly for your enrichment. Come back often and feel free to add the podcast to your favorite RSS feed or iTunes. You can also follow me on Twitter at 5 Squared and Facebook. All the links are in the show notes. Now let's get started with your host, business consultant, executive coach, and founder of 5 Squared, Tim Fives.
Welcome back, Tim Fives, 5 Squared Podcast. So this week we've been looking at been doing a lot of research on what investors look for in companies when they invest in them. And you know, there's so much emphasis on this, and having been through this with a bunch of startups in the past, I figured it'd be a good topic, you know. So if you're out there starting a business, startup, you know, this podcast is for you. It's my Valentine's Day gift to you. All right. Well, that was a little overblown. That's all right. So what do companies look for, or investors look for in companies when they're investing? And it can break into kind of 3 areas: the market, we're going to talk about that, the company itself, and then how they look at the company. And there's various things from the management structure on down, and then the financials themselves. So we're going to talk about a couple of these things. So the first thing is the market. And one of the things that you know, you really have to have a good handle on is what your product or service and what demographic that's hitting within a given market, and the market size, right? Because an investor is going to want to know that there's a market to capitalize that product on. And there's 2 schools of thought on this, and neither are right or wrong, but to be aware, a lot of investors look for the greenfield, right? Like that there's an untapped market out there for your product, and that means there is the thing for unmitigated growth. And then there's others that look for disruptive things, right? So, and that's probably where more than not a lot of us fall into. And you take an Uber or a Lyft or those, you know, there were taxis, and then they came out with a new model. So there's competition in there, but they've been doing great. So, you know, having that clearly delineated, what defines you in that market size and the buyers and the personas and all that is key. The other thing that investors look at a lot of times are the management team. When we look at the management team, we really want to focus on, you know, the bios for that management team. Why are they there? And not so much what their pedigree is, but what they're doing for you. And this is something that I preach on a lot, and that is the ability to take the value of those employees and show how they're applying to the needs that you have in your business. The next thing that we look for, and that is the value and the role they're playing in the organization. And one of the things that you really want to highlight from the management team is that they're enabled to do their jobs, right? You brought these people in, you're paying them, the investors are going to be paying for their salaries, so make sure that you're putting them in the best possible light. As an aside, I worked for a startup, and one of the sticking points always came down to, well, you have this great team, and the CEO at the time wanted to do everything, and a lot of those discussions with investors came down to the fact, well, why am I paying for these people if you, Mr. CEO, are doing all the work? And an odd case, and obviously that startup wasn't successful, but you know, really illuminated that. So then when we go into some other things about leadership, we'll go down this path for a moment. You know, they're going to want to look for that executive, that CEO, that founder that is beyond damn good. They want the guy or woman that is capable of doing and walking the walk. So a couple of things I pulled out here. First is, is that CEO or leader able to do or build the product? And that could be either the visual design and the visual appeal of that product, or maybe it's the coding if you're doing software, but have their hands into it, right? And there's got to be that high level of passion behind it. The other thing that they look for in that leader is, can they market and sell the product? Are they the ones to take this to market? And then the third thing is, can they manage and grow a team? Now, all three of those, if you had all three of those, you're a stellar individual. And there's not many people out there that have all three, but two of the three are really critical. If you can manage and grow a team, and you can market and sell the product, and you're enabling your team to build the product to your vision, that's great. If you can build the product and market the product, great. And you've got somebody in there to run the teams and manage and build the teams, great. Again, it comes back to what's that management team and how are they moving forward with you. Then it comes down to passion. Do they have the passion, and is it?
Thank you so much for listening to the show with your host, Tim Fives. We hope you will pass along our web address, fivesquared.com, to your friends and colleagues. Be sure to check out our archive section on our website for previous podcasts. Follow us on Twitter at 5squared, or follow us on Facebook. This has been a 5 Squared production. Join us next time for another edition of the 5 Squared Podcast.